All right, good people. We are live. Instagram, let me make sure that you are live. Thank you for tuning in to the Crown by Nichele podcast, episode 4. Episode 4. So I am extremely excited about this episode. When it came to this episode and this title and whatnot, I automatically thought about our guest today, Mr. James Means the Fourth, because he was my realtor who helped me buy my second home, and I'll tell that story later. Matter of fact, that story is going to come on episode 5 with Miss D. Reed Smalls. But he was one of the pivotal people that helped me through this process and navigate through this process. Like I will get with you, LaToya, to bring you on the home loan mom to discuss this process. I do believe a lot of people like to downplay home ownership, given the interest rates right now, given just things looking really crazy and not looking predictable. And then I remember someone even telling me how much I pay for rent comparable to how much I pay for a house. I don't see where I'm saving money or where I'm making money. And I had to really break that down to her. So of course, that gave me the idea, this is something we need to talk about on a mainstream where people hear, why should they consider purchasing a home? But not only why, what do I need to do to prepare? Because it's not something, unless you literally have at least $300K just sitting in the bank, you're just not going to walk up and buy a house. It doesn't work that way. So me and James actually went to school together at Winthrop University.
At the Woo.
What year did you graduate?
All right. So since you family, I'm gonna let you go get all of my business. I walked in 2003.
Okay. December or spring?
December.
Okay.
And I came.
Okay, so we walked the same year.
Huh?
We walked the same graduation.
Yeah. Well, I came back for a semester after that because I decided to pledge my fraternity my last semester in college. And I had to come back. So I claimed December 2003, but I came back for 2 more classes after that. But it's all good.
I got the degree. It's cool. It's cool. So we pretty much we walked. That's weird because I didn't know that. So
I knew. I just told the world.
No, I didn't know we graduated on the same day. Like technically, we graduated. I did graduate December 2003. I was a super.
No. Let me take it back. May. It was May of 3.
May. Okay. See, I did. Hey, Tyra, how are you? So I definitely met him at. I don't think we met. I knew him at Winthrop, but we definitely got more acquainted with each other because we go to the same church, Right Direction Church International, and his lovely wife, who I definitely knew her at Winthrop, and it's just one big happy family. He's been doing real estate for how long, James?
It's 10 years in August of this year. And that went by fast. But look, can I give you a shout out? Because one, earlier you said, okay, this is the 4th show. 4 podcasts is not easy. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
And then kudos to the lineup that you have coming up, because I saw like at least the next 3 podcasts, and you are empowering people, and people have a good time when they're with you, and it's fun, but you really are empowering people, and it's needed. And I feel like you got to have a good time to keep you that are watching to keep your attention. But she's got some good stuff coming up. So kudos to you on the success and your future in this. This is really awesome. So I want to tell you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm tapping into my wannabe journalism days. I never really tapped into it in college, but it was definitely always there. So that's another discussion for another day, but I greatly appreciate it. But yes, we will definitely talk about at the end of the episode who we have coming up this Thursday and who we have coming up in the next 2 weeks. So any more you want to add to your introduction, James? But one thing I forgot to add, he is the most patient realtor. Not saying that realtors are not patient, but there were times James was looking at me like, you sure you don't want this house? And I'm just like, because we went through 18 We went through 18
offers.
offers. That's not how many houses we visited.
We saw way more houses.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. That's another podcast by itself. But we put in 18 offers. That's not including every single, because I'm thinking about some houses in the Summit that I looked at that I was like, there's that other house, the neighborhood that was looked like somebody blew it up next to it. There's some stories we can go on that journey alone. But he is the most patient realtor, and definitely when I go for house number 3, he will definitely be that guy. So anything else you want to add to your intro, sir?
So no, I mean, there's a small little thing because you did such a wonderful job, but I will say the reason I give you some kudos on the podcast, because I'm a podcaster as well. So check mine out. Adulting is hard, and you can get it for the most part where you get your podcast. That's Spotify and Apple and Google Podcasts, which I think they just got rid of. But yeah, podcasters in my mix too. And I'm associate real estate broker at Century 21 Excel in Columbia, South Carolina. But no, that's the only things that I want to add. I'm your friend first. And what you're doing, we're going to make it fun. I was, did a little cross promotion earlier, anticipating this. And I'm going to try to talk about some things and approach this angle of home ownership just a little bit different than what we've always heard, because I feel like we have to keep people engaged. And I don't want it to feel like the same old conversation, because we can all do, oh yeah, I've been renting for 5 years and my rent has been XYZ every month, and that times 60 months is, we can all do all that. I want to come from a different approach, even though that totally exists. Even though the part I do not want to talk about is one of the reasons by itself why homeownership is important, where that money is going. I want to give you some more to chew on instead of just kind of the same old things.
Okay, so you want me to go ahead and add your presentation to the stage?
Yeah, it's not a presentation. We're just gonna vibe, but yeah, you can.
Yes. So again, if you have any questions, definitely post them in the comments. I'll admit I go back and forth between screens because this is the first time. Tyra, thank you for posting your comments. I've seen comments from Facebook. It's finally working. Instagram, I have to bounce back and forth. YouTube, I know you can post questions there, but I don't know if it'll pop up on my stream. So just know if I don't answer you in the podcast, in the stream, I will get to you. I will make sure James gets to you and we answer your questions. But please feel free to bring any questions. Take it away, James.
This is why I said kudos to you, because you were monitoring 3 or 4 sources, and you're trying to that's a lot of work. So here's one of the things. Let's start out this way. Real estate is one of the things that, I mean, right now, Ryan, you and I, we're of similar age, right? Similar age demographic. And the older we get, we see some stuff. We got kids, we're raising kids, and some of the things that we're telling our kids, we remember our parents telling us. And, we've seen some things, especially over the last 5 years. And I guess what I want to say is everybody think back of what things used to cost. Almost anything, gas and food and whatever, include real estate too. But what you got to remember is real estate is one of the things that in the future, it is definitely forecasted, it will continue to increase. And it's kind of scary because of where we're at. That me telling you that the price of real estate and where you're going to lay your head, whether you rent it or you buy it, is going to continue to increase. So that's one of the things that you need to consider, the time and where you're going to lay your head. There are some people that like I said, I've been doing real estate for 10 years. August was 10 years. So I thought back some of the people I helped 10 years ago, and I promise you a conversation with them, a 10-year homeowner, of what they did, the decision they made to get into homeownership then compared to waiting, I'm willing to bet it's a totally different conversation than someone that has been renting for, let's say, the last 5 years, because a lot has happened. So when I started 10 years ago, someone that got into real estate at the time, I will tell you, at the time, they faced the same challenges the same kind of scenarios and situations that you might be feeling right now. It's like, oh, how I'm going to do this? How do I come up with a down payment? The interest rates are this. My obstacles are this. There were still challenges 10 years ago. You just have a different set of challenges now. So my point is, it wasn't easy 10 years ago when they made that decision to do it. But 10 years ago, they fixed the cost. They essentially permanently fixed the cost of their housing 10 years ago. So you permanently fix that cost. Now, think what in the last 10 years, if they have gone through life is lifing, but if they've gotten different jobs and promotions and advancements, I mean, for the most part, for 10 years ago, we all should be doing a little bit better than we're doing 10 years ago, but their lodging cost has been fixed. That allows them to plan more things, to save money, to go on trips, to plan for the future, instead of the 1 to 2 years, the rent's going up. I've got to uproot. I've got to find another place of similar cost. I had two past clients call me today and say, hey, can you keep on the lookout for something under $1,500 a month in Northeast Columbia? And this is a rent. Okay, that's hard to do. It's hard. But 10 years ago, buying for $1,500 a month, and that is still your cost now, that's worth its weight in gold.
And I like how you broke it. I don't mean to cut you off, but I like how you broke that down, because again, let me reiterate to y'all, for those of you, and especially like my new people who you haven't rented yet, that rent is going up every single year to 2 years. And it may not seem like a lot, but when you think about over time, and matter of fact, a friend on Facebook, he was speaking, he did a poll on, he said, well, let me see if inflation is really real, which we know is real. But he was like, well, what was your first apartment? And how much did it cost? And I remember buying an apartment, me and a roommate at the time, for $700 a month in Charlotte. $700 a month. When I'm hearing now a standard and this was a 2-bedroom. A standard 2-bedroom now is between what?
$2,200.
$1,200.
In Charlotte? Like if you're still in Charlotte,
I know Charlotte. 2,000?
$2,200.
Am I doing too much?
I know people pay $2,200 for 2 bedrooms here.
$2,200? Oh my gosh. I'm not even paying that for my house mortgage. So the point I'm trying to make is you have to make sure financially you can maintain it, but at the same time, if you know I can do this, then you need to do it. And it's definitely worth the sacrifice, because there is, depending on, I hope he gets into this with his presentation, there is a difference between buying a already made home and you have to do all the inspections versus a built home. And you clarify me, tell me if I'm wrong, if that's part of your presentation. Those have different costs. I know. I remember that when I purchased my first home, it was something they just built. So I didn't have to get the inspections and the different things and looked at. I just moved in, versus what I had with this home. It was a lot of upfront costs I had to pay before I even moved into the house.
I'm gonna give a shout out. I'm gonna give a shout out to the home inspectors that I use, and the network of people that I have around me that help my clients. But they will tell you, and I will tell you too, even if you get a new construction home where everything is new, it still makes sense to get that. Stuff happens. People find stuff. I'll give you a quick example. Brand new construction house, and in the master bedroom, it would not have been found, but the home inspector was using one of those infrared guns that shows the temperature change, so that as they look through it, they can see blue is kind of a cool and red is hot. So they were going over the ceiling, and they found a cool spot in the ceiling. The spot was a perfect rectangle. And they were like, what is this cool spot? Oh, it's an HVAC return. They had sheetrocked over one of the HVAC red that was supposed to put cool air to it. Brand new house. So there was 2 in the room, but only one was covered up. So brand new house, you would not have known. And it's like insurance. It's like, I pay insurance on my car every month, and I gotta have it. But if I didn't have it and didn't have any accidents, I'd be like, insurance is a joke, But as soon as I need it, I'm glad I have it. That's how I look at home inspection. So
Okay. I'm glad I
it's
said that
still,
then, because I definitely was putting out the wrong information. So I'm glad that was
no,
corrected.
that's what this is for. That's exactly what it's
Yeah.
for. And you said something else that I'll come back and I'll just mention because I kind of have it bulleted here when you talked about inflation and the person that made that poll, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the last 5 years, what we have experienced probably for the first time in our life. I mean, I'm 43, y'all. I told somebody last week I was 42, and I really believed it. I thought I was 42. I think for the first time in my life, inflation got really, really bad and really, really noticeable. Where before people would talk about inflation, you hear about it on the news, but it didn't hurt us like in COVID. Inflation was nuts. Everything costs more, and people still saying everything still costs a lot. Well, real estate is a hedge against inflation. What that means is there are certain things, certain sectors, certain assets that are going to do well when inflation kicks up. Real estate is one of those things. So as inflation went up, just like the price of rent went up, the price of real estate went up. If you own real estate while inflation is rising, you're appreciating in value as inflation gets higher, right? And that's of little, I don't know, make you feel a little bit better. It's like, well, my value is super high, but do I sell it and then buy another high price house? Yeah, that's the conversation that we'll have. But it's a hedge against inflation because, truth be told, you can do other things with your real estate once the value gets inflated a little bit. Once you have more appreciation, you have equity, and you can do things with it. So the real estate and the time, that's really what I wanted to drill home, at least as it relates to this side. And what I'm showing you next, this is for anyone that's listening, or if you know somebody that has said, hey, I'm going to wait until the next time the market is going to crash. And that's when I'm going to get into the real estate market and I'm going to be able to get a home at a much lower price. This is for those people, okay? And I'm definitely going to try to make it more concise because I can talk. But let me say this, as of recently, like I think as of yesterday and last week, the Federal Reserve slashed interest rates by 50 basis points. Now, the Federal Reserve is one of the, it's one of our instruments of controlling monetary supply. And when we were trying to get a hold on inflation, the Federal Reserve was raising interest rates. And what they're doing is essentially they're trying to encourage people to put their money in a bank and get a higher rate of return on their cash. Let it sit and earn money for you, right? And take it out of the place and stop doing projects, stop doing development, stop building houses, stop building grocery stores, stop building shopping malls. Plump the money in the bank. We'll pay you 6%. We'll pay you 7%. It is essentially a riskless investment. Because if you can put your money in the bank and get 6% and not have to do anything, that is very tempting, as opposed to buying some kind of speculative real estate or doing kind of a development project and taking on all these risks to try to get a 10% return. Just take the 6%. Wow. So that's what monetary policy is doing. So when they're trying to get a hold on inflation, they're trying to cool the economy down. They were saying, we want you to stop building, stop making orders, stop ordering all these roofs, stop ordering all these clothes. We're trying to get consumers to change their spending habits, and they're making the cost of money higher. Okay. So they've been doing that since COVID. So last week was the first time in about 2.5 years that they have dropped the interest rate. That is a sign that we're coming out of, like, inflation is coming down. And the worries that a lot of people had that we're going to have a market crash, we're going to have a correction, we're going to go through a recession, those worries are starting to come to an end because the Fed is starting to, hey, we don't want this economy to stall out. We need to now get people to take their money out the bank, do the projects. We'll lower the cost. Go buy the house. Go buy the car. Go do the things. So as they start reducing that interest rate, it's going to bring more and more people back into the marketplace, into the economy, and start doing those projects. So what we have gone through since COVID was we went through a lot, But to the people that thought as a result of COVID, and sometime between COVID and the market crash, and I'm going to jump in and I'm going to get my house, that window hasn't opened up yet. And this is just my opinion, though I don't see the window opening up anytime soon, because what we really have, the problem that we have is a supply and demand problem. We don't have enough houses for the people that want them. We didn't have them during COVID. We don't have them now. Okay. And
can we pause for a second? Can we pause? Because I'm baffled by that. Because every time I turn around, especially in the northeast side of Columbia, even coming down I-20 on the other side going towards Camden, I don't remember all those houses being there. So we say there's a shortage, but help that make sense to people, because every time I turn around, someone is clearing some plot of land and putting up whether townhomes or homes. So how is that not? Is it based on what's already available? They don't count what's being built?
So let me take you back a little bit and paint the picture. And this is why we had an inventory problem. I got to take you back to the last time we had the real estate crash that everybody was waiting on. Okay. Right before that crash, the country was producing about 7 to 8 million new construction homes a year. And you can arguably say we were overproducing. We were producing too much. Okay. So that's what we were producing. So we were accustomed to that level. Real estate crash happens in 2007, right? That number dwindled way down, right? Market crash, economies changed, and a lot of people, a lot of construction companies went under. People got out of the trade, and we have never bounced back from that number of 7 to 8 million homes a year as a country, new homes a year as a country. We never bounced back to it. We are somewhere around 4 to 5 million homes every year, and that's like last year. Okay. And so we never got the inventory back from levels that we were producing then. Right. Now you got to think about, how demographics of people, Generation X, Generation Y, we are in the prime group. I think it's just Generation Y. I can't remember all the letters that we have for everyone, but we're in a group now that's bigger than the baby boomers. Right. Wow. And they are now entering their prime working years, where they're looking for housing. So we have more people looking for houses. We never got the inventory back. Right. So we started having a supply problem. We started having a supply problem after the market crash. We just didn't have the demand at that time. And since then, it's just been creepingly getting, we've been noticing it a little bit more every year since then. And it came to a head during COVID. And now I'll finish it by this. This is what exacerbated that problem during COVID, record low interest rates. Because during COVID, the federal government, we don't want we don't want the economy to crash. During COVID, it was scary. There were weeks where 1 million people were let go, out of work every week. There'd be 1 million new unemployed people. Right? We didn't know what the economy was going to look like. They dropped the interest rate to incentivize spending. Spend, go out, order food from home, have it delivered. So interest rates were 2 and 3%, right? So the people that had real estate refinance, lowered their cost to be in their homes at a 2 and 3% rate. And now those people have what we call golden handcuffs. Golden handcuffs means they're really pretty looking handcuffs, but you're not going anywhere. You are now tied to that house because you have a 2% interest rate and you don't want to let go of it. You don't want to let go of that nice low monthly payment.
That may be me. I think I might be one of those people.
You might be golden handcuff. So what I'm describing is a supply problem that started back after the first real estate crash, a demographic of people that are now in their prime working years, getting married, having families, need to make the moves. And then this is of the people that refinance, it's of the people that have mortgages. Almost it's like 50-50 of the real estate that is owned in the country. Half of it's paid off. So of the people that still owed, I think I saw a stat, 70% of the people have a rate below 4%. So they're like, No thanks. I don't want to. I'm fine. So that doesn't lead to us getting any more inventory because the golden handcuffs is like, I'm not selling my home. So the reason you drive down the road and see so much new construction, that has been the best source of inventory for people that are looking for homes. Build it, because people aren't selling it at the same rate that they were.
Gotcha.
So hope that makes sense. Thank you for letting me go on that journey. But yeah, that's how we got here. So my whole goal is like, all right, your window that you thought you were going to have, I don't think it's coming if you were waiting on the market to crash. And what we thought, economists, the experts thought, we might have a mild recession. If we don't even have that, well, look what has actually happened. Real estate stopped increasing 10% every year during COVID when you were buying your house. That's what was happening. And now it's not. It's appreciating like 3% every year. And this slide is literally on August 2024. So that's last month for the area that you live in. So your address is not up here, Ryan, but it's just the area that you're on. And heck, I don't know if you can see it. I can't see it on the screen, but it shows from basically August 2023 to August 2024. Okay. So that's 1 year of time. It shows the median price change of, it is 7.4%, because it's hard to read. Okay. 7% from August to August. That's a huge number. And that's during the time where people are like, I'm waiting for it to crash again. Maybe not this year, maybe next year. All right. How many years are we going to say that? Because as I said earlier, there are people that 10 years ago when they purchased, they had some obstacles too. They had people in their ear. They had family that was advising them that bought during the last time the real estate crashed, or back when hamburgers were 29 cents and I would never pay that amount of money for a house. They're already in their house. Their house is worth 40 times more than what they paid for it. So I guess, I'll move on from this. But if there are questions, have your viewers reach out to you. You can send it to me or however. But I like to dispel this myth.
But on the slide, I'm reading it as you're going, but you said, okay, 316K can go to 325K. That's within a year?
I did a TikTok and I literally just pulled these numbers from my TikTok. So I said, all right, if you just assume the average appreciation increases 3% a year. So the TikTok, it was designed to say, can you outsave the cost of waiting? So a $316,000 house in 1 year, if it goes up 3%, it now costs $325,000 the next year. That's a $9,000 increase just from waiting. So that $9,000 increase, you either save that over the course of the year that you waited, so you're not affected by the waiting time that you did, right? Or you finance it in. If you finance it in, the $9,000 is going to cost you about $12 more per month. Not a huge deal. You just financed the $9,000. That was your cost of waiting. And if you use an FHA loan with 3.5% down, that waiting is going to cost you $315 in more down payment. Okay, so that's what waiting did. But if you waited 2 years and it still goes at 3%, so now 6% over 2 years, that's $18,000. That's $24 a month. That's $630 in more down payment. And so that last one, I said, well, what if it goes 10%? Because it has done that during the time when you purchased your home, right? We had 10% increases. And what this chart is showing from August of 2023 to August of 2024 in Northeast Columbia, it has been a median price change of 7 point something, whatever I said. So it's almost been 10%. Okay. So when your friends and the people are trying to help you and they're saying, I just wait. You can. No one has a crystal ball. But all I'm saying is that the supply and demand aspect of this on its basic level is still so lopsided that I don't see the relief in sight that you're waiting for. And think about it. I keep up with politics, but if you are hearing Kamala Harris, one of her points that she said that hopefully everybody's getting excited. They're like, first-time home buyers, $25,000 tax credit to get your first home. That would be huge for this market. But at the same time, from a real estate perspective, that is going to drive prices sky high because we don't have enough houses. Inventory. So you're going to incentivize a bunch of people to get into the housing market, and they got $25,000 that they'll get. They'll probably won't get it all up front. It'll probably be a tax credit over 5 or 7 years or something like that. Still tremendous, but you're going to put a lot more demand in a real estate market that doesn't have the supply. But also part of her plan, I heard her say she wanted 3 million new housing units by another time. So we need both. We need both sides of the equation. But this slide was to hopefully dispel, change the thought
waiting for the
pattern.
market to crash. Yeah. I like how that's broken down, because it really does show, yeah, you're waiting. Now, I understand you waiting because you don't have the down payment. You don't have what you need to have in order to get the house. I get waiting for that, but just waiting for the price. You have all that money, but you're just waiting for the price to drop. What James is definitely showing you right here, you actually spend more money waiting versus just go ahead with it if you already have the money in place.
Yeah, and that what you just said reminded me of another TikTok that I did where, I've met some really, I don't know, there are Starbucks fiends. I mean, when you have the app on your phone and you just go into the restaurant and it's waiting for you, and you do that every day. I can't remember exactly, but I totaled it. If you just did it like 4 days a week, it's an incredible amount of money. Like the food delivery option and the Starbucks that is a lot of times the difference in what you're paying in rent and what your new mortgage payment would be. It's a change of our habits. It really is. So just trying to give everyone another way to look at this. So let's talk about some of the basic things. And again, I'm trying to approach this a little bit different, but this is some of the basic stuff. This is the basic stuff that you're going to need if you're thinking about home ownership. The very first question that I ask my clients that I'm working with, and that I think you should consider, is, am I going to be here wherever I am? Am I going to be here for the next 3 to 5 years? If my horizon is 3 to 5 years, yes, it makes sense to buy. If you're saying right now, Atlanta is looking good, I'm thinking I might go to Atlanta in the next year or so, then that might be a reason to put it on pause, because you need to be here for the last 3 to 5 years. Why? If anything happens in terms of the market doing a reset, in terms of a recession happening, in terms of real estate changing in a substantial or even mild way, a 3 to 5 year horizon will essentially make sure you outlast that. The longest recession in U.S. history was like 18 months. Okay. So, to avoid, I'm going to, I buy a home and if you move next year, you could be in a scenario where you lose money. Right. But if you buy a home with the intention of 3 to 5 years, I'm going to be here. In 3 to 5 years, I can't guarantee you, but I'm willing to bet you're probably not going to lose any money. Okay. So that's the first question to ask yourself, and that's simple enough. The next 3 bullet points, I want you to remember it by the acronym CIA, like our government spy organization, CIA. But it's credit, income, and assets. That's the crux that you need to be thinking about, like, to get ready for home ownership stuff. You got to think about it first, and then when you sit down and you talk to a loan officer, the questions that they're going to be asking you are CIA questions. Okay. So the C is for credit, is to know your credit score and what a qualifying credit score is. When I say qualifying credit score, it's just a qualifying credit score needed to purchase a home, which is not always high. It's just not. It doesn't take a 700 or 720. I would say.
But what are the benefits of having a 700 and a 7? Like, what? Even though you may have, I guess, a 620, what are the benefits?
There's benefits. So the benefit is obviously the higher the credit score, the lower your interest rate, but also some nuanced things that you probably haven't heard of, or you just don't. I get in the weeds. So some of the nuanced things, when you have a higher credit score, it unlocks more of the income you're able to use to purchase a home, right? You can purchase a home with, all right, I'm going to say, you can purchase a home with 500 credit score, middle credit score, with 10% down, or 580 with 3.5% down. You can do it. But you don't have access to the full amount of income that you have. Because when we talk about, I'll tell you what, I'll get to the income thing on the next bullet point. So knowing your credit score, huh?
No, I was saying cool beans.
Okay. Yes. Knowing your credit score is important. The higher credit score, the lower your interest rate. And then the higher credit score, it unlocks where you can use more of your purchasing power. And I'll explain that in another slide. But what it takes, if you have at least a 620 middle score, you're fine. You will not get the rate that someone has at a 720 credit score. But I don't think it's going to be noticeable enough where you're going to be like, well, I'm going to wait another year and pay another $9,000 to work on my credit score. If you have 620, you need to go. If you have 580, you might still need to go. The difference between the 580 and the 620 also allows you access to other help. Okay. 580 is a manual underwrite. I'm just not going to get into that, but I'll hit a little bit on the next bullet. But between 580 and 620, 620 unlocks housing assistance programs, down payment assistance programs, access to grants and things like that will help you. You can't get it at the lower scores. Okay. So if there's something to shoot for, you shoot for at least a 620. And I said a middle score. Your middle score means you have 3 credit bureaus that report your credit score. They all have a different score for you. One has a high score, one has a low score, and then the one in the middle is the one in the middle. So your 3 scores might be 610, 620, 630. 620 would be your middle score, 610 would be the low, 630 would be the high. That's how they use it. So knowing where your credit score is important. The I part of it is the income, and I put gainful employment because that includes so much. Because right now in 2024, you do not just have to have a W-2 job to get a house. W-2 job is like working as an employee for someone and you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. There's a gig economy that you can very much be a part of. You can be a 1099. You could be a content creator and buy a home. Can I tell you a very interesting story? I rented, so we have some real estate that I manage here, and then we have some that a property manager has. So I just rented one that's here. And so I was screening the tenants. And so one of the things that I was looking for, even when you rent, guess what? Maybe this is a good reason I told the story. As a landlord, we screen tenants and honestly can be more selective than a seller could be. If you were looking for a home and you have a pre-qualification or a pre-approval letter from a lender, you get more scrutinized as a tenant than as a buyer of a home, right? But they sent me their income documents and they said they were a content creator, and it was 1099. There were no pay stubs, and so for the income they sent me their bank statements, and I was like, well, what am I looking for? Because normally you'd be looking for a direct deposit every 2 weeks that shows. So I was like, well, I see a big deposit there. I said, there's a big deposit there. There's a big deposit there. And I said, but I don't recognize what this is. I don't know. So then I Googled and I said, well, they're content creation. All right, what social media company uses this? And I copied it to pay their content creators. And I pulled it up and it said OnlyFans. And I was like, oh. It was like I just had these light bulbs going off. And I was like, oh, they do that. And I was like, I don't know if y'all can do that at my house. I don't know if my carpet can take that. But my point is the income was strong. The income was like, they were like 21 and they were $180,000 last year.
Which you're giving some of my students hope, because that is one of the things my former students out here, YouTuber, they wouldn't say content creator, but that's pretty much what they were saying. So a YouTuber, and I'm just like, and you're giving them hope right now.
Well, here's the thing. You don't have to strike it rich as a content creator. You just have there are plenty of people doing content creation that are making $60,000 to $70,000, $80,000 a year between their videos and some sponsorships and stuff like that. Yeah. That is good money.
Yeah, it is.
And you can and it's treated like 1099 income, like if you were a car salesman or got paid commission or something like that, or in business for yourself. So you just got to have income. Okay.
Yeah.
And so without getting too much into the deeds, you need to have income, and it needs to be steady. But I know there's a lot more self-employed people and content creator, gig economy. That's Uber and Lyft drivers, food delivery stuff. Like that counts too. And some lenders have special programs like just for them. So don't let that be something to stop you.
Okay.
The debt to income is right under this one, just because this is how I want you to look at it. It's not how much money you make, like income. It is the debt that you have in relation to the income that you make. So
yeah.
You are let's say you are a school teacher that got just out of college and you were on scholarships the whole time. You get out of college with no debt and you have a $50,000 salary. Okay. You have a lot more purchasing power than a law school graduate that comes out of law school with a bunch of student loan debt, and then they get a strong salary, $150,000 salary, but they go lease a BMW and they have a bunch of bills and a bunch of student loans. All right. The teacher probably has more buying power at $50,000 and no debt than the law school graduate that's now an attorney that has a big car payment and other bills to match his big payment. Because I've had that exact scenario happen.
And I like how you said that, because I'm even thinking about now, I'm flashing back to a conversation I had with some Upward Bound students. And I'll admit, going through the senior year with Joshua, scholarships, if you're not in that top 10%, Joshua was in the top 25% of his class. If you're not in that top 10%, it's very competitive. But that doesn't mean you stop applying for scholarships, because you don't want your child to have to come out of school with debt. That's especially if you want them to be able to get into their own home, building up that credit score. So that I'm glad you said that, because that teacher, there are ways now that as teachers, they're finding ways of getting loans canceled out and getting loans paid for, so you don't have that money. So as a result, I like how you said, even though I'm making less as a teacher versus a lawyer, I have more buying power because I don't have as much debt. I like how you put that out there. And I don't know if this is already on a slide you already have, but I guess as parents, what can we do to help them, not only trying to keep them getting scholarships, and I limit parents, is very tedious and it's very long, but keep at it until you get what you want. What can they do to build their credit and to maintain their credit, especially our kids who are in college now, and eventually they'll be out in less than, I just realized Joshua's going to be like adult in less than 3 years. What can we do to help so they can be credit ready for home ownership, if that makes sense?
I wish I had, I could call the name of some of these programs, because I don't have the name, but it literally, if I'm talking to the parents, this is something that you're literally going to have to grab your child by the arm and say, hey, we need to have a session that you've never gotten in school. Because it's, as soon as when they release you in college, you know who's there waiting for you? They were there in Dinkins, giving out credit cards as soon as you got and we have no financial education about that going into college. It's it's just deferred. It's instant gratification now, and I'll deal with it later. And you could end, heck, how many people got were waiting on the refund check for the they lived off the refund check, and there was no budget at all. There were credit cards widely available. It is not taught in school unless it's maybe an elective or something that you can do. That is something that we're going to have to do as parents, and monitor. For the most part, what your child probably needs is access to a one card while they're in college that you have access to, or you can make them authorized user on one of your cards.
I was about to bring that up.
Yeah, or get them a card, but you're on it too, so you can see everything, so that you don't have a financial and a credit mess coming out of school. Because my goodness, there's some things I'm going to talk about later. I didn't even mean to jump that, but there's some things I'm going to talk about later that if you did when you came right out of college, you'd be so much further along. But a lot of times we come out of college saddled with debt into a entry-level job that's not paying that much. And one of the problems that we have been having is the wages, like the wages have not kept up with the rising cost of everything else because the inflation that doesn't keep, to the point where I know several people were like, we've had strong debates in my household and my family of like, what is the value of the college education if you're going to come out $200,000 strapped to the hilt with debt, only to go into some $40,000 job as soon as you get out? It's like people can't even see their way up. So I think there are a couple of I feel like Credit Smart is the name of a program, but it's something I think the parents have got to do, and it won't take, like, literally in 2024. You know what we could do? We could go to ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, assume the role of a combination of like Dave Ramsey and a very smart banker, and craft me a budget and a budget plan for a college student, and create 10 of the most important bullet points that I need to share with my college student so they don't make the mistakes going to, and just go from there. Like, sometimes we overthink it because AI will do that for us and probably do a better job of what we might be able to find.
Cool.
Yeah, that was a great question though. All right, last thing was the cash saved for real estate costs, and that's the assets. So that's the last part of CIA. The assets would be the amount of cash that you need if your loan requires a down payment. I said if, because some loans don't require a down payment. It would be the cash you need for any closing related cost. There's a cost to close because you're going to pay some people to do some work for you on your behalf so that you can close. And so that costs money. And so I would say that number from a percentage standpoint could be 6 to 7% of the purchase price. Those two for your closing costs. Could be more. But if you plan for that, you start to be in a good space, because it doesn't always have to take that. There are things that you can do in negotiation, ask the seller to pay certain things where you thought you were going to have to pay 6% of the purchase price for your closing costs. You end up with just paying 3.5% because the seller paid some other closing costs. So, but for planning purposes, that's what you need. Because now, guess what, Ryan, when you purchased, the market was totally different. It was a different set of, it was like, you need cash. If you don't have cash, we need to be looking at Ribbon or some other kind of program that would incentivize the seller to take your deal, because there's so many cash offers out there. They don't even want to consider financing, right? So it's a totally different guidance that I'm giving now because the market is different. And that's helpful if you're in the market.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of cash offers that took houses I wanted. So, but it worked out.
All right, so now let's talk about some unconventional ways to do this. Okay. Now the first one is unconventional, and I don't want to start nothing. So this is only if it's possible. I literally said purchase with a spouse. Now it doesn't always, I said spouse, but after that, you know what? I saw an article almost right after I sent this to you. And the article is on CBS News. And it says, I have it up. It says, millennials and Gen Z embrace co-ownership to make home ownership dreams come true. So I said purchase with a spouse because there's some benefits of, I didn't kind of go over this, but let me say it like this. Hold on. I have it here. If you were to, I'm trying to find it. Here it is. Okay. So that debt to income thing I mentioned earlier, I've run the numbers. So let's say you buy a house, it's $270,000. That's how much the house costs. The principal and interest payment is $1,652. It's not the whole payment. That's just the principal and interest. Okay. Let's call it $2,000 with everything. So one person is making $3,000 a month. Okay. If you take $3,000 a month into the $2,000 a month, you probably don't qualify because it makes the front end ratio 55%. That means just the income that you have into the proposed debt going to be about 55% of your income. Most banks will they'll blow up your deal at that. You can't be that high. You can't borrow 55% of your income with just your house and your income. That's too high. But if you have two people both making $3,000 a month, now you have $6,000 of income, and it makes your front end ratio a little less than 30%, which is right where they want it. Okay. So I say spouse, but it doesn't have to be spouse, because in this 2024 real estate world that we're living in, we have to get creative because wages have not kept up with the cost of real estate and how everything, because real estate hedges against inflation, it's gone up too. So it's more expensive to buy. But the article talks about 31 and the 35-year-old, they bought a house together, and they talked about how it mitigated the risk, and they got a lawyer involved. They went through, hey, what if one sells before the other one sells? And they kind of worked through that thing. So they did things to mitigate. It was like, okay, I'm not buying with my spouse, I'm buying with my friend. So let's work through some of the potential things that are going to come up. And now let's look for a house. And I think we're in where if it is not feasible on your own, we just need to have some kind of other alternative that you need to be open to. This is changing the way you look at it. This is the other angle I was talking about coming from, because home ownership is important. I'm going to jump a slide real quick. This is how important it is. On average, and it continues to be this, the net worth of a homeowner is 40 times more than the net worth of a renter. And net worth is, if you were to die today and all your accounts were settled, and the cash you had in the bank and the value of any assets you have of a car and real estate and everything, if they were settled and sold, and you got a pile of cash and it has to pay off the debt that you have, do you have more cash left over once you satisfy your debt? That's your net worth, right?
Wow.
And so on average, a homeowner, because of the effect of appreciation increases over time, because they're paying down mortgage balances as the appreciation goes up, that is the number one driver of net worth. It's not, investments are good, and stock market is good, and other windfalls are good too. But this is usually always 40 times more. It jumped more during COVID, but this is drastic. This hopefully gets your attention, because it's saying on average when the renter's net worth is a little less than $10,400 after all the accounts are settled. So that's why we have to take sometimes these unconventional ways to look at this.
And I would even, when you said that, I remember they're married. They're both married now, but I remember my twin cousins. It was a house in Atlanta, and they had 50 million roommates. And even to the point where they were renovating the basement, where they were going to have 3 more rooms down there to help share the cost of this house. And this is like the early 90s, like 94, 95.
Oh, so that house is paid off now.
Yeah. I want to say at one point somebody was renting the house, but the point I'm trying to make is, don't, like, a lot of people like their own space and they're not trying to live with anybody. But if you genuinely want to, invest, and you have people you can live with, and I feel like it's a way you can make this work.
Totally agree. And I'll jump on that, because that's my last point. The house hack. That was called a house hack, which you saw in Atlanta in the 90s. But the house hack is renting a room out, renting out a separate space in a home, buy a home and rent a room out. A house hack could also be buying a duplex. The first house, buying a duplex, buying a triplex, or buying a quad. You can buy up to 4 units, and it's treated like a single family residence. You can buy like an apartment building, and it's treated like your primary, as long as you live in one. And you could buy a building where the other tenants are help paying off the building. And all you have to do is stay in that home for a year before you do something else. And then you can rent out your side. And then you have an income producing asset that's possibly paying you every month. And if it's not paying you every month initially, you just hold on because rent increases are coming, right? And then that
Now,
becomes a source of passive income for you.
correct me if I'm wrong, they're not as expensive as people think. Like I remember seeing a duplex as low as 130. Granted, that was like 5 years ago, and I don't remember the area it was in, but getting a duplex is not as expensive as people think it is.
Depending on the area, definitely depending on the area. I mean, they're if they're still available, because during COVID, I mean, stuff got snatched up
Mhm.
so rapidly during like the other thing that happened during COVID that I did not mention, real estate got noticed by big institutional investors like Wall Street,
Mhm.
hedge funds and stuff, and they just use real estate as it's like I'm buying gold and silver and stocks, like where I
Mhm.
can buy this asset, get 10% increase every year, and get a flow of money every month. I'm buying real estate. And so
Mhm.
buyers and institutional investors and corporations started buying real estate up and making a lot make it a lot more difficult. But yeah,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to cost that much. But we had a lot more duplex, triplex, and quads available prior to COVID.
Mhm.
They're not. I don't see them that often, and when they're there, they're usually not there that long.
Mhm.
All right. But so house hack, if it's your first home, you should consider that. And that might be some delayed gratification too, because here's the other thing we hadn't talked about that I want to mention. Um, we watch a lot of HGTV and real estate gets sensationalized, and we think that the first house has got to look how it looks on that TV. And that's not the case, y'all.
Mhm.
For the most part, the home is not going to look like that. I mean, that's for TV, and
Mhm.
um, you need a house, and you can improve it and you can make it look nice, but if you want it how it looks on TV, you're probably not going to pay the price that it's going to take to do
Mhm.
that.
Exactly.
So don't get wrapped up in the house doesn't look like I thought it was going to look. We oh gosh, we just make dream material out of home ownership. Heck, I got a home ownership seminar coming up, and I used a very deceiving picture in my home ownership seminars. It's this gorgeous kitchen. You can't see it from there. I use this really gorgeous kitchen, and we have to do that to get your attention. But honestly, I'm tell you the heart, your kitchen is probably not going to look with gold accents coming down, and
Mhm.
and, and it's we need a house that's in good condition, that's not going to cost you money over the course of time, that hopefully has a newer roof, that has a newer HVAC system. You don't have plumbing leaks and stuff like that. We need a good
Mhm.
quality house like that, right? So that you can exchange your rent for some equity that you're building. And so that when you get ready to buy your next house, if you choose to buy another house, that house is
Mhm.
worth more, and you're going to use that to springboard you into your next house. Or if you
Yeah.
decide to stay there, you've got a very solid house and your lodging costs are fixed. That's what we need.
Mhm.
So don't let what we see on HGTV, it's so sensationalized. Don't let that
Mhm.
scare you away, because it's not going to look like that house. Other unconventional things, pulling assets from your 401k retirement plan, that is an option. You can pull it. When you pull it, it's a loan, so you have to pay it back. And I don't know the details of your individual plan, something you talk with your HR people. Um,
Mhm.
but you could use that for a down payment. You can use that to not borrow as much. And you can use that in addition to some down payment assistance programs. So
Mhm.
that's a way. Um, Credit repair. And I do credit repair, and I'll say do it the right way. I don't have time to tell you like the right way. That's going to be an actually podcast for me on Adulting is Hard.
Mhm.
Credit repair the right way. Um, but offering compromise is really powerful. And offering compromise is okay. If you have a credit repair, there's something keeping your credit score down. It's either a old stuff or it's new stuff that's happening every month. So the quick thing might be we got to stop the new stuff that's happening every month, because that's keeping the score down. And the old stuff is an offering compromise. That's like there's an old Spectrum bill that is $500 and it reports late every month, and it's call inspector and say, I have $75. I want this paid as full. I have $75. And they're probably not going to take the $75, but if they'll take less than 200 or 250, you just paid off that debt for half, for 50 cents on the dollar. That's an offer in compromise. So you can systematically start to go through things that are reporting negatively. Hey, I didn't know this was on here. I just saw this on my credit report. I need to pay this off. I got $75. Would you take that? Make an offer. So that is a way. And then automate savings. So drafted out of your, like if you have direct deposit paid to account, just have a certain amount come out every week, because it might take a year. Like, what does it take to save up 3.5% or 5% of a $250,000 house? I mean, we got to chip away at it. We can't just sit here and not do it. So I'm trying to give you some different angles on how to approach it. And then the last part is a side hustle and a part-time job that you can put large chunks towards your down payment if you have a side hustle and are doing something else in that gig economy. Like I'm doing Uber right now because I have a plan. I want a home. I'm delivering meals right now because this is how I'm going towards my down payment. Right? We just have to have a plan. Those are some unconventional ways that I wanted to talk about. And then, of course, we have mentioned this. This is just this is a very strong piece. But all right, Ryan. So I have those are some of my unconventional ways, and kind of the end of kind of what I want to talk about. But I want to be open to whatever that any questions you may have, or anything that you'd like me to talk about, because I've given you a lot of basic stuff like the CIA.
You gave a lot of information. Yeah. So I guess for me, what I want to reiterate when it comes to the credit, pay your bills. Pay your bills. Like, one thing our bishop likes to say is don't let it go over 30 days. But make sure you're paying something towards your bills. Like, it makes no sense to go on trips and catch flights and you have bills that you can't pay. And you want to purchase a home one day. And I think people forget that when they're out there living a good life. So make sure you're paying your bills. What I want to speak on with the credit repair, I know he said he's going to make a podcast. Be very skeptical about people you pay to repair your credit. I fell into that trap for like a quick little minute. And when I realized she wasn't really doing anything, and I'll admit that was the Holy Spirit and discernment was like, this is not doing what you think it's going to do. And you need to cancel this service now. And they sometimes make it seem like it's only $30 or $40 a month. But I want to say I was paying almost $75 to $90 a month for her to repair my credit. And I literally would call her and say, I don't see what's changing. I don't see what's moving. It wasn't until I did some work on my own. I did some investigation on my own, calling some things, getting some things like paid off. And I can't even really take you through that process, but I saw the process as I was putting in the work and not paying someone who supposedly was doing the work. So I would stay away from that. So that's one thing I want to reiterate. So
I might have you on the podcast to do, because it's a misnomer. It's not credit repair.
It's not.
I think that's just marketing. It's not credit repair. It's there's a whole industry that's taking advantage of a system that's been put in place to dispute wrongful information that's on your credit report that may actually be hurting you, because your credit report could stop you from getting a job. A mistake on your credit, right? A mistake on your credit that gave you a low credit score might stop you from getting a job. It might cost you more on your house loan, more on your car loan. And if it's a mistake, there's a system that's set up that to address a mistake, so
you
that
can do that yourself.
That you can do yourself, absolutely. But it's there so that you're not negatively impacted by a mistake on your credit report, that you never in life ever said, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, I give you permission to track all my credit purchases. No one ever gave them blanket permission. So if they're going to do it, it should at least be right. So they're taking advantage of a system that's meant to do that, calling it credit repair, charging you $100 a month for something you can do for yourself. And you're not repairing anything. You're trying to they're exploiting a loophole. Did you see recently, like all those people that are in trouble with Chase Bank because they tried to exploit what they thought was a glitch? They were trying to take advantage of, they tried to, like, exploitation in its rawest form is like, I'm taking advantage of a situation. And they thought they were taking advantage of a code error. And they got a rude awakening. But that's what the, you know, and there might be some credit people watching, but, and there's some good ones. There are some, I have somebody that I recommend, and he handles it totally different than most credit repair people. But yeah, it's exploitation.
Yeah, make sure you do your homework. Make sure you do your homework. So I honestly, I feel like you covered everything. Like even to the point of you showing, I really did enjoy the graphic where you broke down, okay, yeah, you're waiting for these interest rates to go down, but this is how much it's going to cost in a year, breaking it down by price. One of the reasons why I'm definitely going to bring on LaToya for an episode is because I remember going to LaToya and saying, okay, I'm looking at this house. So what am I looking at in down payment? What am I looking at? My closing costs. She was able to break it down to a science. So, and there was a certain home I wanted. I'll never forget. It's in the back of the Summit Hills. I wanted that all brick home in Summit Hills, but I want to say it was going for like $220. And when she broke down all the costs I would have in the end, I was like, I can't afford that. So we ended up going with something else, but you can find all these things up front with the right person, and you get, you know, pre-qualified to find out, okay, what exactly do I qualify for and what can I get for what I have? And you don't want to be what is called house poor. That was a story I saw the other day on, I think it was NBC, where they admit they're quote unquote house poor because they could not find what they wanted in their price range. So they went up almost $20,000, $30,000 more than what they could afford to get a home. So it's very interesting.
It's interesting because I heard there's always two sides of everything, right? Because I recently heard somebody saying, like, man, if I knew then what I knew now, maxed out my budget during COVID when rates were really low. Because there was a time period, almost a year ago, like to the month, interest rates were 8% mortgage interest rates. Now we're like in the sixes. And there was a time where like the $300,000 house cost the same thing as the $600,000 house, depending when you bought them.
Yeah.
And so they were saying I should have maxed out then, appreciate and realize how cheap the money was at that time. Right. So yeah, there are two times of it. It's like when you buy a home, like, look, let's use that to transition into, this is why usually having representation when you're purchasing or selling a home is important. Because you need someone there that's going to advocate for you, advise and counsel you, and to remind you of things like that. It's not just solely a conversation about the house. It's about, that's why I start off, all right, you're going to be here for the next 3 to 5 years. But also, what else is going to happen in that next 3 to 5 year time period? Like, do you have kids about to go to college? Are you going to change jobs? Income about to drop? So there's some other things to think about too. So before you pull the trigger on it, I mean, stuff happens. Life is going to life. Obviously, things can happen. But there are people like the example I just said, that depending on the situation, hey, you might need to max it out right now. This is the last home you're planning on ever buying. Like, based on the conversation that you and I just had, you're looking for your dream home and you don't want to do this again. Now might be time to max it out. Interest rates are really cheap. And other people, it may be, hey, you need a savings plan before we do this. Like, it might be two totally different sets of information that's based on the unique needs of the person that we're working with. So one of the reasons why you want to have, I can't stress enough, a real estate agent is there for you to do more than to give you access.
Yeah.
I have stopped a lot of people from stepping on a landmine and blowing up, all because I was there. And so for the most part, when we do this every day and have a bunch of transactions under our belt, sometimes it's monotonous, but sometimes we can see things coming, and we're there to protect you. So don't always try to do it by yourself.
Yeah, and one thing I will definitely reiterate a point what he was saying, how not everything you're going to want may be in the house, especially if you're not willing to pay for it. Something is popping up on my screen and I don't understand why. Okay, it went away.
You got
So
yeah,
I don't know what just happened. So the point I'm trying to make is, and matter of fact, well, I remember I really wanted to have a bonus room because my son is a gamer and he's very loud. So I did not want his room in any vicinity of my room. Well, that didn't work out that way. Like none of the houses I wanted with the bonus room did not come through. And then my mom reminded me, Ryan, in less than 2 years, your son's about to be in college. And that's where we are now. So it's like certain things. Now, one thing I had to have was a garage. That was not, I was not doing carport city again, like I did with my first house. I refused. So, and there were things that came with my house I wasn't even expecting that happened. So I have a feeling that's going to be another episode within itself, just the whole home buying journey and what I went through and us sitting down and processing that together. Cause that was definitely a journey within itself. That was truly faith testing in every sense of the word. So I do believe it's attainable, but the whole point of this podcast was just to give y'all some more information and for you to see by numbers what really it looks like and what we're looking for. So he does have a home ownership workshop coming up. You want to give more information about that?
I do. This coming Saturday, I have a seminar that is in Hopkins, South Carolina. We're in a new construction neighborhood by McGuinn Homes. Saturday, September 28th from 11 to 1 p.m. It's for anyone. It's for a first-time home buyer or a move-up buyer. Because we're in a new construction neighborhood, we're going to have some representatives from McGuinn to talk about their products, of course. But I'm here to empower you and inform you to get into home ownership. And just like we said earlier, sometimes the reason you see, there's nothing but new construction, that has been the best source of inventory because of the dynamics that we talked about earlier. So yeah, if you have it up, if you scan that QR code, it will take you right to the Eventbrite where you can get your ticket. It is not a cost for the event. We just want to have a number for people that are coming, and it is not I think it's 14 seats left. The last time I looked. So yeah, if you are in or you want to go anywhere around Columbia, it's in Hopkins. It's not far. So I invite you to come and get some more information, get some more good stuff. Let me continue to empower you and change the narrative and change how you're thinking about this thing. Hopefully I challenge somebody on the waiting piece and cause you to look at home ownership a little bit different.
Now, one of the reasons why he definitely is coming back that I just thought about as a question, but I don't want to expound on it because we're over our time. But one thing that some people know, but not everybody knows, I lost my first home to a foreclosure. So I definitely wouldn't mind engaging in that conversation. But the fact that I was able to purchase a home after a foreclosure says a lot about God, but it also shows you is a lot about the process that people underestimate, because I really didn't think I could qualify for a home given my situation, but given the time period and some other factors that James and definitely Latoya can give y'all more information about when we have another episode, will help those of you who have been through foreclosure, or maybe you just recently went through a foreclosure, how that can work out for your good.
Yeah. Kudos to you all around. You're that first bullet, when I said, buy the spouse if at all possible, I was hesitant to say that because I know for a fact that I've tracked this. 90% of the people that I have worked with ever have been female. They've been single females.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
That's who's buying the houses. It's not us. It's not the males. And so I don't cater to you. But I'll help anyone, but I know who I have helped in the past, and that's the trend. So I wanted to offer that as a spouse, but non-occupying co-borrower could be the friend, it could be a parent, it could be a grandparent, but single guys, we got to step up. Homeownership is important for you too. You step up.
Oh gosh. So for those of you who are just jumping in on or just joined this, please know that I will leave this up on my YouTube page. It will stay on my YouTube page. So if you want to go back and rewatch and jot some notes, please do. It will stay on Instagram and Facebook for at least 24 hours, and then I will take it down. But it's already, probably by the time I end the stream, will be up on YouTube. So our next podcast will air on this Thursday at 8 o'clock with Mrs. Demetria Reed Smalls, who we have so many ties that it makes no sense, but she has an awesome testimony and awesome story. She's also a realtor. She's also, awesome. Yeah, D is like a mogul. I hope she embraces that. Like D, between being a realtor, she's also launched a clothing line, like a clothing brand. She also is an influencer. Like she does these Target reels where they're trying to clothe her and her sister, and they have a lot of followers.
Yeah, she's like a Target ambassador.
That is crazy to me. So, but if you knew her story before then, and that's why her podcast is entitled Storms and Rainbows. So not after every storm you see a rainbow here in Columbia, South Carolina, but just know if you're under God's covering, there's always a rainbow after the storm. And that's what we're going to discuss on this Thursday. So please tune in for that. I will discuss the next 2 episodes on Thursday. But if you follow me on social media, I've been posting things on and off. Ryan N. Jenkins, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever it's called, TikTok, I'm on all that. So thank y'all for tuning in, and y'all have a good night.